Thank you all for coming today. Thank you very much. And big thanks to Trish Sitterson, who put together the beautiful programs for us. They're very nice, and she also did a video that you will see later at the after party. My deepest appreciation goes to those of you who helped Boo through her illness, who brought her food and clothing, who sat with her while she slept, who helped me when I had errands to run, who just sat and held her hand, and those of you who made her smile. She had a big, infectious smile, didn't she? I remember the day Mom and Dad brought her home from the hospital. I had been playing under a big oak tree out in the front, eating dirt for the first time. They told me, "We brought you a new friend." So, that said, she became my best friend for the next 54.5 years. And I was so busy keeping up with her that I never ate dirt again. How did she get the name Boo? Dad used to bounce her on his knee and say, "Nanny Boo, Nanny Boo." The name stuck. Growing up with Boo was fun. I always had a built-in partner in crime. Anything I wanted to do, she was always ready to help me. We shared many of the same friends, only because she followed me around, whether I knew it or not. And we decided together who was friend and who was foe. Together we were an unbeatable team. No matter the cause, I always had an ally in Boo. The downside of this was that everything that Boo did that was bad was ultimately my fault. I'm sorry, Mom. I may have been a bad influence up to a certain point, but overall I think she turned out pretty good. Boo was always good with money. Every time we needed money, usually to buy albums, she would pull out these bills that smelled so deliciously sweet. We would ask her, "Where are you keeping this money that it smells so good?" And she would always say, "In my sweet-smelling place that is my secret." She never did tell us. I'm still looking. During the early 70s, there were always lively political discussions in our home, still are. Without fail, Boo always stood up for the underdog. Whoever was losing in the polls, that was who Boo favored. She always gave the person with the least chance of success the most support. As such, she was a strong Democrat, which in our household was a losing battle. She didn't care. She donated her time and her money and her energy to charities that were up against great odds. As long as she could help the downtrodden or someone who wasn't as fortunate as she went the extra mile. She was a homebody. She hated leaving home. In '72, we went to Germany, Switzerland, Austria, France, Liechtenstein. We had been planning to go to Puerto Rico, but at the last minute, our plans changed, and we ended up in the Swiss Alps with snowbanks and glaciers all around. It was a fabulous trip, but Boo would have preferred to have stayed at home. It was warm there, her friends were there, her boyfriend was there, there was no language barrier. She was homesick during the entire trip. Whenever she had to leave home, and this was true throughout her whole life, it caused her great worry, unless, of course, it was to go to a jazzercise conference. Let's talk about her hair for just a brief moment. When I was 11 or 12, Mom had to go out and left me in charge of brushing Boo's hair. Now, Boo was at that age when hygiene was not high on her list of priorities. By this age, I had groomed the poodle. So what was the difference between grooming a poodle and fixing Boo's hair? So I took the dog thinning shears to her hair. It took years for that afternoon's haircut to look right again. I'm sorry, Boo. She struggled with her hair, wishing it was straight, wishing for a different color, just wishing it would go away. Yet she had the most beautiful hair. Everywhere we would go, people would marvel at her natural curls. And I think she finally came to accept it, and she loved it. I'll touch briefly on this only because I love Boo, then you can talk amongst yourselves. Boo had more than her fair share of medical issues brought on by high heels. Why did someone who was 6 feet tall with 4 inches of hair need 5-inch heels? They were always cute shoes. Here are a few of my favorite memories about growing up with her. When we lived in Corpus Christi, Texas, there were frequent hurricanes that would blast Padre Island. And Mom would take us way back inland into the island, searching for washed up gold and pieces of 8. So I went ahead of the group, always the scout. Suddenly I found myself stuck in quicksand. Before I knew it, I was up to my knees very quickly. Boo immediately situated herself on solid ground and stretched her arm out to me. Then she told Mom to stand back and took her hand. Together they formed a chain and pulled me to safety. Boo saved my life that day. When we first moved to Northern Virginia in 1968, we watched as Tyson's Corner was built. For Boo and me, it was like our own private gymnasium. She and I power walked that mall every Friday night, weaving through the crowd at top speed. There was an ice cream joint there, I think it was called Farrell's. It they gave away free hot fudge sundaes to you if it was your birthday. Well, Boo and I had so many birthdays there, they went out of business. Not only did we power walk Tyson's Corner, but we went through a period when we walked like Egyptians. Especially when we went to Disney World. When it first opened in 1971, we went down there with Grandma and Grandpapa and Mom and Dad. Boo and I did our power walking there, outrunning Mickey and Minnie. It was so much fun. I used to be a DJ. We had a small enterprise and carried heavy albums, speakers, turntables, and gear to all our gigs. We were actually pretty successful, playing a number of fancy venues. Boo helped carry the gear and helped us set up. Then she would go put on a swishy dress, plump up her hair to the ceiling, and she would stand back watching the crowd. When it was time for everyone to start dancing, we'd motion to Boo. She would grab the most handsome man in the crowd and pull him onto the dance floor. She always got our parties started and kept them going. We made a lot of money off of Michael Jackson's Thriller. She was a great dancer and knew how to get people off their chairs and onto the dance floor. Thank you, Boo, for your great love of music and for knowing how to turn a good song into some great dance moves. Later, Boo realized her true calling was to cook. I can't tell you how many Saturday nights we spent at her house as her guinea pigs. She would find a new recipe and we would eat it. Most of the time, it was delicious. Most. We did this for years until Dad passed away. She was heartbroken when Dad died. She had always been Daddy's little girl. Without him, she was devastated. Our Saturday night routine was interrupted for a while. She loved her job. No matter where she worked, she threw herself into her work. She especially loved her last job at GW. It challenged her, she learned constantly from it, and she loved the work environment. It was no secret that her coworkers covered for her during the 2 years that she was sick. They came to visit her. They brought her food. They called her every day. Not always about work-related stuff, but to check on her. They cared about her and for her. Her coworkers at GW were the best friends a person could have. I will always be grateful to you for the friendship and love towards my sister. She loved you right back. You always had her back. And then she always had my back. She always thought that she and I would end up together in our old age living in her townhouse. Her pantry and deep freeze were evidence of this. She had enough food in her house to feed a small army. She always told me that when the bomb goes off You come over here and we will survive for years. Apparently, we were going to live off of chocolate chips and cheese. But I don't want to make light of her sentiment here. Because of her superior money management skills and all that sweet-smelling money, she believed that she was going to take care of me, and I never took that for granted. Then, on January 3rd, 2013, she turned bright yellow. She went to see her doctor, who drew blood samples and ordered a sonogram. By the time she left the sonogram, her doctor called and ordered her to go directly to the hospital. The valet parked her car, and she called me from the emergency room. I flew to the hospital to join her. She didn't leave the hospital for 6.5 weeks. That was the beginning of what became a nightmarish 2-year ordeal. She always believed, sincerely and optimistically, that she would beat this cancer. She went to every test, every biopsy, every procedure with a big smile on her face. She dressed nicely for